All right, so let's talk cover two. Our offense here is going to have the center and the guards, quarterback, running back, two receivers on each side, right? And then our defense is going to be two defensive ends on both sides, and then we're going to have the cornerbacks, and then the linebackers, and then we're going to have the safeties. Okay, so just imagine this is the field. It's a line of scrimmage. All right, so in cover two, the two denotes two deep zones. So these safeties are covering these two. We want to think about splitting the field in half, and the safeties cover this half of the field and this half of the field. And then this middle linebacker has this middle deep zone, and then the linebackers here have these zones right here, and then the cornerbacks have what's called the flats, which is these zones right here. So in cover two, it's 2 zones deep and then 5 zones underneath. So thinking about this practically, and just zone defense in general, you want to just cover the area, not the man. And that's going to sound really confusing initially, but it's going to make a lot more sense down the line. So this is just S for Sam, which is strong side linebacker, and then Will, which is the weak side linebacker. Just think of them as the outside linebackers for now. The line of scrimmage, we're going to say, is here. Now imagine we have this person here and this person here, right? And this person runs a go, and this person runs an out. That means that the safety takes this person because they're coming to their deep zone right here, and then the corner takes number 2 because they're coming to this flat area that they're responsible for. General coaching points is for our safeties. We want our eyes to go from, so we're gonna count outside in. And the receivers, we're going to count outside in. So the widest receiver on this side, we're going to call them as our number 1 receiver, number 2 receiver, and then number 3 is either going to be the quarterback or the running back, depending on where you're lined up. So as a safety, I'm reading 1 to 2, which means I'm looking at 1 to see if they're going vertical. If they're going vertical, I need to get deep and cover them. If number 1 does something shallow, then my eyes immediately should be going from number 1 to number 2. Because, okay, if this guy is going shallow, if number 1 is going shallow, then is number 2 coming deep? And then if they're coming deep, I need to get deep. Yeah, and similar thing with the outside linebackers. Our eyes should begin on whoever we're guarding. So you're going to line up what's called a head up, probably, on the number 2 receivers. Head up means just like you're lined up on them. And from there, you will read 2 to 1. So if you're the outside linebackers here, you're going to look at your number 2 receiver and see if they go in. If they go in, you stay with them for a little bit, but you know that this middle linebacker has this zone and they can kind of help on this guy if they come in. So you're going to yell in, and then you're going to point to your middle linebacker, just make sure and communicate, hey, this guy is coming in towards your zone, your responsibility. If they go out, right? It's the same thing, but opposite. You tell your cornerback, hey, out, 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 they're coming to you. Because the corner has this zone and you have this zone. And if you're the cornerback, you're going to read opposite of these guys. So you're reading 1 to 2 instead of 2 to 1. And basically in cover 2, you want to get your hands on them and you want to jam them here. So you want to really slow this person off the line, so you buy yourself more time. And you want to slow them down, and while you're slowing them down, while you're jamming them, your eyes should be looking at 2, because if number 1, let's say, goes here and goes deep, and while you're jamming and while you're slowing down number 1, you see that 2 also goes deep, you kind of notice the issue here with cover 2 is that this guy is supposed to get back, and cover this deep half of the field. But if 2 people, if both number 1 and both number 2 are going deep, then you'll realize quickly that this one person has to cover 2 guys in their area, in their zone, which is not good. And so as the corner, you're going to be looking 1 to 2. And if you see number 2 go deep, what that means to you basically is you're responsible for this zone, right? And you're going to realize that, hey, the only person, if number 1 isn't threatening my zone, the only person that could threaten my zone next is actually this number 2 receiver. And so if the number 2 goes deep or in or anything that's not coming out to you, right, you actually can fall back and stay with this one, number 1 receiver. And where you're going to play what's called a trail technique, which basically means that normally you don't want to let anybody on the defense or on the offense get in front of you as a defender, like run past you. But in this case, because you know you have your safety who's going to help over the top, and then the number 1 receiver who's like running down the field this way, you're actually allowed to play underneath it. So you kind of, I'm just going to call this number 1 the X. So you are able to kind of sandwich this guy, and you're playing underneath, and then your safety's playing over the top. Yeah, and then for our safeties, for our outside linebackers, your eyes, if 1 goes deep, then nobody is threatening your zone. So we're going to look at 2. If 2 goes out, right, again, we're going to call that out to our corner who has this zone. Hey, out, out, out. But if our corner drops deep, and number 2 goes deep as well, you are in charge of this zone. And so you can kind of follow this number 2 receiver up, but you're actually now responsible for this zone as well later on. And the reason why that's relevant is we look at our number 3. So let me draw this again. If I'm just going to draw one side of the field, so let's call the football in the middle here, center, guards, and the quarterback, and then the running back, call H, and then X, and then F. These are our receivers, number 1 receiver, number 2 receiver. Corner, outside linebackers is going to be the Will, and then the safety over top, and then the Mike linebacker. So we're just kind of drawing one side of the field. If 1 goes deep, 2 goes deep, that means our safety is going to take this guy, our corner is actually going to drop back and get this guy, even though the original zones are here. That kind of got messy. Even though that's the case, these 2 guys are actually going to fall back now if 1 and 2 go deep. And if this number 3 receiver does anything out here, then this outside linebacker is actually now responsible for them. Yeah, so to summarize, our cornerbacks, our eyes are going to be eyes from 1 to 2. If no one coming to the flat, which is this area, the shallow area here. Then you drop deep. Does that make sense? And then our linebackers are outside linebackers, shortened OLBs. Eyes 2-1. If no one coming to your zone, which is this zone, you'd fall back with number 2 receiver, but eyes 2-3. So if this guy gets out of there, this guy gets out of there, you can drop with them, but just be ready for this number 3 receiver coming to the flat. And then our safeties, I have space up here. Our safeties who are up here, are reading 2-1. Actually, no, 1-2. Yeah. Eyes 1-2. The reason why we read 1 first is because our safeties, if you're lined up properly, should be kind of close to the center of the field. And the reason, there's many reasons for that, including just it's better to defend against the run, but your drop will always take you outside. Your drop being where you start to go right after the play begins, from where you began initially before the play, if that makes sense. So your eyes are going to always go to 1 first, because if you see this one guy just instantly hauling to try to get deep, then you also need to run as fast as possible to get deep and to get enough depth on the field to stay and keep up with him. Yeah, so that should be cover 2. Real quick, it's just for all of our coverages. For defensive ends, that's going to be the center, left guard, I'll just call it guard, and then this is where the football begins. It's a bad drawing. Quarterback, running back. So this gap right here in between them is called the A gap. And this gap out here is called the B gap. And normally in regular football or tackle football, which is 11v11, the football we're playing is 9v9. Normally it's center, right guard, left guard, and then right tackle, left tackle. So then normally there's a, B, and C gap. But for our intents and purposes, there's only going to be A gaps and B gaps. Also, in the rules, if we remember, there's going to be these cones out here that the offense is in charge of moving. And this running back actually can't run in between these 2 cones. And so they always have to just run outside either direction. And so because of that rule, there's actually really no benefit for our edge rushers, our ends right here. There's really no benefit of trying to rush inside, because then you're working yourself into a double team. So instead of just having a one-on-one on the outside with the guard or tackle, whatever you want to call this position, to get around and get to the quarterback or get to the running back and make a play, there's basically just no upside of taking this inside path. So almost always we're going to rush on the outside. This is also good for something called contain, which means we don't want to let runs get outside in either direction. So we're trying to contain it within. We're trying to push everyone inside and contain them, which is why it's called contain. And the reason why containing is very important, especially in flag, is unlike tackle, if you're in the open field and you're just faster than someone, you can just really beat defenses very easily by just getting horizontal and then just cutting up. And so that's why it's very essential that we always rush outside for our ends. Yeah, that's quick cover two. All right, going back to the linebacker rule specifically for cover two, I was just watching the video back. I made kind of one slight mistake. Your eyes should still go from two, which is who you're lined up on, to one. But if, for example, the example I gave was if one goes deep and two goes deep, you're allowed to still fall with this guy, but I want you to look your eyes across the field. Similar to how like you're kind of responsible for this number three late, if this guy comes across into your zone here, you're actually still responsible for it. So if one goes deep and two goes deep, you can drop with two, but don't immediately just like fully run away so that you leave this entire zone vacated, if that makes sense. That's all.